Welcome back, Focus Learners, to another explainer. Today, we're taking something that honestly might just look like a dry, boring table of match results, and we're going to transform it. We're going to uncover an incredible narrative of global dynasties, absolute heartbreak, and the wild evolution of the beautiful game.
So consider this for a second. Who are the real titans of this century-spanning tournament? We hear a ton of debates and a lot of passionate opinions about international football. But when you strip all that emotion away and just look at the raw outcomes of the final matches, what does the Pru data actually tell us about dominance?
Well, the answer starts with this massive number, 22. The dataset we're digging into today spans exactly 22 tournaments, starting all the way back in 1930 and bringing us right up to the modern era in 2022. Every single piece of insight we're about to unpack comes straight from the final matches of those 22 historic events.
Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a great roadmap for our data-driven journey today: Kings of the World Cup, the Heartbreak Nations, the home field advantage, and finally, the rise of overtime.
Chapter 1. Kings of the World Cup, the Titans of the tournament.
When you're looking at nearly a century of competition, you'd probably expect a pretty wide distribution of winners, right? Well, actually, an elite handful of nations have completely monopolized the podium. Brazil sits at the absolute peak with 5 total victories. Right behind them, you've got Germany, which includes their history as West Germany, with 4 wins, and Italy also sitting there with 4 wins. If you do the math, just those 3 entities account for an incredible 13 out of the 22 total victories. That is nearly 60% of all historical titles locked up by just 3 nations. It's literally the definition of a sporting dynasty.
But as we trace the timeline of these champions, something huge jumps right out of the raw data. There's this massive 12-year gap in the record books. Italy claimed the ultimate prize in 1938, but the next recorded victory isn't until Uruguay takes the title in 1950. Now, the data alone doesn't spell it out for you, but it's a stark reminder of the historical context. The entire world, including the tournament, hit pause because of the Second World War during that exact decade. It really shows how global events directly intersect with our sports data.
Chapter 2. The Heartbreak Nations. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Now, what's really interesting about this data is the agonizing pattern of repetition for a few specific countries. These are the nations that pushed all the way to the absolute final hurdle, only to fall short. Take the Netherlands. They were runners-up in 1974, 1978, and again in 2010. 3 appearances in the final match, but 0 appearances in the winners column. Ouch. We see a similar repeating heartbreak for Czechoslovakia in 1934 and 1962, and Hungary in 1938 and 1954. It just highlights how incredibly difficult it is to convert a finals appearance into an actual championship.
And to wrap up our look at the heartbreaks column, we've got to acknowledge the single-time runners-up who appear in our dataset without a corresponding win. Sweden made it all the way in 1958, only to be stopped by Brazil. And much more recently, Croatia made a stunning run to the final in 2018, only to fall to France. It just goes to show, getting to the final is a monumental achievement, for sure, but actually lifting that trophy is a completely different statistical beast.
Chapter 3. The home field advantage. Does hosting matter?
So what happens when a team hosts the tournament? Does it actually give a measurable advantage? Well, out of our 22 tournaments, a visiting team has won 16 times. However, a host nation has defended their home turf and won the whole thing 6 times. Now, 6 out of 22 means that over a quarter of all tournament victories belong to the host nation. Statistically speaking, having that home crowd and the familiar environment behind you is a massive, tangible asset.
It's an ultra-exclusive club of just 6 nations. Uruguay did it in the inaugural 1930 tournament. Italy followed up immediately in 1934. Then we have England in 1966, West Germany in 1974, Argentina in 1978, and finally France in 1998. When you recount that list, you can almost feel the historic weight of those home crowds propelling their teams to victory, right?
So, the crucial point is this fascinating modern trend. No host nation has won the tournament since France did it over 2 decades ago. While the historical data shows a pretty strong home field advantage overall, the modern era suggests that the gap between hosts and visitors might be rapidly closing.
Chapter 4. The Rise of Overtime. The Evolution of the Final Match.
Let's move forward and see how this builds into the actual dynamics on the pitch, because the nature of the game has really shifted. The early era of the tournament featured these massive, high-scoring blowouts, like in 1958, where Brazil totally dismantled Sweden 5-2. But as we move into the modern era, finals transform into these nail-biting, low-scoring defensive battles. The prime example is 1994, where Brazil and Italy played to a super tense 0-0 draw after full time. The game is undeniably tightened up.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what happens when those defensive battles reach their absolute limit. While we definitely had extra time matches early on, like in 1934 and 1966, just look at the sheer density of unresolved matches in the modern era: 1994, 2006, 2014, and 2022. The modern final match is increasingly becoming a battle of attrition that pushes teams past the standard 90 minutes far more frequently than in the past.
And when extra time still isn't enough, we reach the ultimate crucible of the sport, the penalty shootout. Our data shows that only 3 times in these 22 tournaments has the final been so tightly contested that it literally had to be decided by penalty kicks. In 1994, Brazil edged Italy 3-2. In 2006, Italy defeated France 5-3. And most recently in 2022, Argentina triumphed over France 4-2 on penalties. It is absolutely the most dramatic, nerve-wracking way a data point can be generated in this entire explainer.
We've unpacked 22 tournaments, 13 wins by just 3 nations, the absolute agony of the recurring runners-up, the fading magic of the host nation, and the undeniable rise of the defensive overtime battle. So, I'll leave you with this to consider. As the game continues to evolve and the margins for error get smaller and smaller, will the next chapter of this dataset be defined by endless penalty shootouts, or will those same old titans continue to hoard the ultimate prize? Think about that, and keep exploring the incredible narratives hiding inside the data.